Well, I want to thank you and thank Penny. She's done a fantastic job, and I just got to meet a lot of your leadership, and they're incredible people. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, a tremendous honor, and to address one of the most legendary groups in American politics. That's what you've become, and that's a very big statement. The Concerned Women for America, a very big statement. I was proud to be the very first candidate to sign your presidential pledge. That was a pledge that was very easy to sign. Took me about 30 seconds. I read quickly. I look at it. I say, I'm going to do that. You think Joe Biden would? First of all, he couldn't read it. He wouldn't know. What does this mean? No, I looked at it very quickly, and I said, that's perfect. But it's a pledge. It is a pledge, vowing to defend the dignity of women and affirming the ultimate truth that all women are female. Can you imagine if you said that 10 years ago? People would say, what the hell does he mean by that? Of course, it's incredible what's happened to our country and to the world to a large extent. But what's happened to our country at last, think of it, all women are female, and I have to make that statement? It shouldn't be necessary, should it? As another statement we say, we will not allow the mutilation of our children. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? No, but can you imagine making that statement 10, 15 years ago? People would say, of course you're not going to do that. But now you have to stop it. It's crazy what's going on, but it's just one of those things. This world is changing, our country is changing, and a lot of the world is changing because of our country. Our country is in very, very serious bad shape, really bad shape. I want to express my profound appreciation to the true leader and of all of the people here are so incredible, whether it's Penny Nance or whether it's all of these incredible people sitting at these tables that I just met for the first time, and that you're out here on a beautiful evening in Washington. Washington, as you know, has some very serious problems with crime, with muggings and killings and fights and a lot of problems, and we're going to do something about Washington. We're going to bring in the federal government. We're going to federalize it. We're going to run it properly, clean it, make it safe. It's got to be safe for people to come to, and people want to see a safe city. It's very sad when I come in. We had a situation that was a lot different just 3 years ago, and now you come in and you hear the stats and you hear all of the things that are going on, and you see the graffiti all over beautiful marble walls. It's not removed, and you see parks that are occupied by people that aren't supposed to be there. It's a very sad thing when I see it, but we're going to straighten that out too, along with a lot of other things. 1 year from now, each of you will vote in the most important election of your lifetimes. This election will decide whether America will be ruled by Marxist, fascist, and communist tyrants who want to smash our Judeo-Christian heritage, or whether America will be saved by God-fearing, freedom-loving patriots just like you, and that's what you are. If we stand together in this fight, we're going to defeat crooked Joe Biden, and he is crooked as hell, isn't he, though? It's unbelievable. He didn't do anything wrong. How about the quid pro quo? We're not giving you the $1 billion unless you get rid of the prosecutor. How about if I said that? That's called the real quid pro quo. But we're going to take back our country, we're going to take back our culture, and we're going to make America great again, greater than ever before. We're going to get it done, please. But just think of what we've already achieved with the help of many people, just like the people in this room. We did more to uphold religious liberty than any administration in history. I think everybody really admits that, even my opponents. Today, 2 of them came out and they said, well, that happens to be right. Actually, one of my opponents said that I was the greatest president in the last 100 years. And I said, oh, is he running against me? That's very nice. No, it's very nice. Look, they respect what we've done. I fearlessly protected the religious freedoms of doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor. I blocked the IRS from using the Johnson Amendment to interfere with pastors' freedom of speech and other faith leaders. I stopped Barack Hussein Obama's hateful, bigoted assault on faith-based adoption and foster care services, as you know. And I restored your right to help those beautiful children find a loving and equally beautiful family. As president, I stood proudly with our friend and ally, the State of Israel. I kept my promise. I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Even got it built. I got the embassy built. Can you believe that? Would have taken 20 years. You wouldn't have had an embassy. That was an interesting one. I said, do we have any land? You know, they wanted to spend $2 billion to build it. We spent slightly less than that, like $500,000. Got it built. I said, do you have any buildings around? You know, we were always first, like, you know, whether you always try and do, if you want a real building, you always try and get the post office because they were there early. I happened to do that in Washington, D.C., actually. We redid it and did very well. It's been a great success. It's been a really beautiful building. But I said, let's get it built. Let's get it built. So they came to me. They wanted to spend $2 billion. I said, well, maybe we have land that's a better location. They had a piece of land, but it was a bad location. The real estate people, two of them in the back that are friends of mine, they're very good real estate people, too. They know what I'm talking about. So they went out, they checked. They called me up 2 days later. They said, you know, we do have a great piece of land, and it has a building on it. I said, that's even better because you can renovate the building for a lot less than it costs to build a brand new one. A lot of people don't know that. So I put a crew on it. I said, how much can we do? Can we build it great? They said, sir, we can do it for $350,000. And it's the first time I think this ever happened to me, like in my entire life. I said, that sounds too low. How the hell can you do it for that? It sounds too low. And anyway, so we got it done. We did it for a little bit more. We used Jerusalem stone. Everyone talks about Jerusalem stone in New York. They love Jerusalem stone. It's very expensive. I said, can we use Jerusalem stone? Because we're in Jerusalem, right? They said, yeah. I said, it's very expensive. They said, no, we're in Jerusalem. You know, I have a friend, he thinks it's the most magnificent stone, and he's willing to pay anything for it. So we did the whole thing in Jerusalem stone. We got it done for less than $500,000. We opened the embassy, not only designated, but we opened it. And we saved almost $2 billion. Think of that. And the $2 billion wouldn't have been spent. That building wouldn't have been built for 20 years, but we got it opened very quickly, and it's really beautiful. And there's no reason, in my opinion, to ever redo it. But someday they'll knock it down and spend $2 billion or much more. But I also recognized Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, something that was going on for 58 years. I got it done. We got it done quickly, and I withdrew the United States from the totally disastrous Iran nuclear deal. Unfortunately, this administration hasn't done a damn thing about it. They've let that just go on and on and on. And then they made a deal, as you know, for 5 hostages. I said, all right, that sounds okay. 5 hostages. They had 5, we had 5. That sounds okay. But they forgot to tell me one thing. In addition to the hostages, they get $6 billion. You know that deal? You heard about that deal? That's not a good deal. That's not. What are they doing? It's a 5 for 5. They said it's a 5 for 5 split. Plus they get $6 billion. Oh, that doesn't sound too good. But that's what happens with this country. I've never seen anything like it, whether it was trade deals or any other kind of deal. It always seems that we get the short end. We did such a job on trade. We redid trade deals at a level that nobody's ever seen before, and took bad deals like NAFTA, and we made them great deals, the USMCA. That's United States, Mexico, Canada. We did an incredible trade deal with China that I don't even talk about. They buy $50 billion worth of our farm product and manufactured product, but I don't even talk about it because of what happened with COVID. But South Korea, we did incredible deals. Japan, we did incredible deals. We took deals that were horrible and made them good. And we did a lot of things. We've been given actually a lot of credit, even by the fake news. But here at home, we totally transformed the federal judiciary. And as Penny said, I heard her opening remarks, and she said we appointed nearly 300 judges, really brilliant judges, and they interpret the law as written. Constitution, we like to say the Constitution as written. That's the way they interpret. Together we withstood vicious attacks to confirm 3 great Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. Really good people, too. And I'm also proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Very important. We're going to talk about that in just a second. From my first day in office, I took action to protect the unborn. I reinstated the Mexico City policy, stopped taxpayer funding for the abortion of industrial complex, and at the United Nations, I made clear that global bureaucrats have no business attacking the sovereignty of nations that protect innocent life. They have no business doing that. And I was the first sitting president ever to attend, as Penny also mentioned, the March for Life rally right here in Washington, D.C. They talked about attending it. You know, presidents for years talked about attending. Oh, I'm going to go, I'm going to go. And then it happened that they didn't go. And none of them went, none of them. But I went, and it was a beautiful day. 1 year ago, in a victory that conservatives had been seeking for 50 years. 50 years they've been fighting for this. Those same Supreme Court justices and the Supreme Court ruled to end the moral and constitutional atrocity known as Roe v. Wade. Very important. Nobody thought that could be done. And so important, and it's not discussed right, it's not talked about right. To be honest, Republicans don't know how to discuss the subject, but they're the radicals, not us. The Democrats are the radicals. So now pro-lifers have a tremendous power to negotiate. You had no power whatsoever. There wasn't a thing you could do. But now you have tremendous power to negotiate, which they didn't have before the ruling. This moves the issue back to the states. Everybody wanted it to go back to the states. All legal scholars on both sides, they wanted it back to the states where it should be. Like President Ronald Reagan before me, I support the 3 exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. And I think it's very hard politically if you don't support, but you have to go with your heart. You have to go with what you believe, and you have to rely on your heart for that. But I do support the exceptions. Ronald Reagan did, and many others do. And I think if you don't, it's politically very difficult. But again, you have to go with what you feel. Remember, the Democrats are the radicals on an issue like this. This is a very important issue, but they're very radical because they're willing to kill babies in their 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month, and even after birth. You know, they kill babies after birth. You remember the governor? I call him Michael Jackson, remember? He's a big fan of Michael. He was going to almost do the moonwalk, and then his wife stopped him. She did a great thing. It was probably the greatest contribution ever made to him. But he talked about the baby's born, and then we'll discuss with the mother what to do with the baby. The baby is born. And these are extremists, not us. They're the extremists. The politicians and the people that have this issue, they fought for 50 years to get it, and they have to know how to talk about it because they're not talking about it correctly. And when they do talk about it correctly, it's an issue that really can be positive because we do have to hold on to office, we do have to win, and we can win elections on this issue, but it's very delicate, and explaining it properly is an extremely important thing. You have to be able to speak and explain it properly. And a lot of politicians who are pro-life do not know how to discuss this topic, and they lose their election. We had a lot of election losses because of this, because they didn't know how to discuss it. They had no idea. I heard some of the people discussing it, and they just didn't have a clue. And we can't let that happen. It's an incredible thing. And we gave them this unbelievable power to negotiate a great deal. And remember, before the termination of Roe v. Wade, they had no power and you had no rights. No rights. And done properly, our nation, after 52 years, can finally come together. This has been a rough issue for our country for many, many years. And you can come together and you can have victory, but you can come together. But you have to be able to discuss it properly because it's so bad when I listen to people talking about it. They don't know what to say. They feel it, they want it, they love it, and from a religious standpoint, they love it so much, but they don't know how to talk about it. Another great victory for our movement last year, the Supreme Court issued a landmark decision protecting a thing called school prayer. That's pretty big, right? And just months ago, and this is one that people were very impressed with, the justices also ruled to move our country forward with a merit-based system of education. Now, who thought that was going to happen? In other words, if you get all A's, you get in. If you don't get all A's and boards and whatever it is to get in, you just, they were having other people come in with marks that were very, very inferior. And now they won't think of it. We're back to a merit-based. This country's about merit-based, and we're back to a merit-based system. And I think that one got people by surprise that that's happened. But we're going to have a great country. We're going to have to base success on merit, not other things. And I think that was I frankly think that was an amazing decision. But it's no wonder the far-left lunatics, perverts, and criminals are getting desperate to stop our movement by any means necessary. They are really trying to stop us, as you perhaps have read. It's all they're good at. They're bad at policy. They have no idea what they're doing. They have open borders. They have no voter ID. They don't want voter ID. I saw on the television one of these characters. There shouldn't be voter ID. Now, you have voter ID to buy a loaf of bread. You have ID to buy a loaf of bread. You have everything. You have pictures. When they had their Democrat National Convention, they had a picture of the biggest thing I've ever seen. They had fingerprints. They had everything you could possibly know about that person. That was to get into their room with thousands of people. It was like a billboard. It was actually very much like my mugshot, if you want to know the truth. Thinking about it just right now. Big. But for voting, the most important thing for voting, there'll be no voter ID. And this guy was trying to explain why. There's only one reason they don't want voter ID, because they want to cheat. That's the only reason. There's no second reason. And that's all they're good at. As you know, crooked Joe Biden and his radical left thugs have weaponized law enforcement to arrest their leading opponent, by a lot leading, on fake and phony charges. It's a phony deal. This is high-level election interference, and it's happening for a single reason, because I'm the one candidate that they do not want to run against. You know, they always go out, we really want to run against Trump. If they wanted to run against me, I wouldn't be in courts all over the land fighting these maniacs off. They don't want to run. And if you look at today's polls that just came out, I'm leading Biden in just about all of them, and in some cases leading him by a lot. No, they don't want to run against me, but they say, very smart. They're good. They're misinformation people. Disinformation and or misinformation. A lot of people don't know the difference. There's a very little difference, but we'll say it's both. Disinformation, misinformation. They say, we want to run against Trump. We're dying to run against him. First of all, we won in 2016. Same people said, he won't be able to beat Hillary Clinton. Now they say, he won't be able to beat crooked Joe Biden. Well, I took the word away from Hillary, right? We call her now Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman. I took it away because it was so good, and it fit Joe Biden so well. But I don't like having a name the same for two people. So that was a great day for Hillary, because after 5 years, I stopped calling her crooked. So now I don't know what to call her, so I just call her beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. But he's crooked as hell. But just today, Fox has me up by almost 50 points on DeSanctimonious and beating Biden. 50 points. And Harvard-Harris, just as I'm walking on the stage, he just came out with a very similar poll, up by numbers that people, frankly, haven't seen before. And a lot of it's, a lot of times they say, well, they don't like Trump, but they love his policy. No, I think they like me too. You can't get elected if they don't like you. I mean, the policy is very important, but if they don't like you. But they always say, they don't like him, but they like his policy. That's why he has these good numbers, But I love you, and I hope you love me. But we fight hard for you. But all polls are bearing this out, these big numbers. I mean, every one of them. I haven't seen one that's even slightly negative. It's driving a lot of people crazy. Oh, CNN's gone crazy. MSDNC has gone absolutely crazy. They don't want to talk about it. But on DeSanctimonious, as you know, I got him elected, but now he's a failed candidate. He failed. He failed before. He came in, I gave him an endorsement, and we lifted him into victory. He was way, way behind. It was over. The race was over. I endorsed him, and he went like a rocket ship, and he won very shortly thereafter. And then I got him past the elections. I got him the nomination, then I got him the election. He ran against a guy at the time who was turned out to be a crackhead, but nobody knew that at the time. At the time, he was the hottest, one of the hottest guys. He was probably the hottest man in the Democrat Party, and Stacey Abrams was the hottest woman in the Democrat Party. He was going to be, they said, the governor of Florida. He couldn't stop him. Ron DeSanctimonious said, oh, I don't think we can beat him. I don't think we can beat him. Because he was. I mean, if you remember back, and I said, you beat him. And we did 2 or 3 giant rallies. We had unbelievable rallies, Trump rallies for him. And then he wins. And then 4 years later, somebody shouted out, will you run against the president? And he said, I have no comment. He said he had no comment. That guy's going to run against me. And I started hitting him, and they all said, sir, he's a Republican. You shouldn't hit him so hard. I said, like hell I shouldn't. And he went down like an injured bird out of the sky. And I'm actually quite happy about that. You know, a lot of people say, loyalty means nothing in politics. Sir, you shouldn't mention it. You're wasting your time. I have genius consultants back there. You know, they get paid a lot of money. They say, sir, loyalty. They actually change their mind now because they see what happened. I said, no, I think loyalty is very important for people. They said, well, in politics, it means nothing. I said, maybe you'll be surprised, but I assume it did. You know, when I get somebody in office and then they turn around, I hardly spoke to the guy, hardly knew him during that period of years. But anytime Florida had problems, I was always there. But then he says a statement that essentially said he was going to run. And so we hit him hard. And he's really, in fact, in South Carolina, he's right now in 4th place. He's in 4th place. And I'm leading the 2nd place by 35 points. You know, they have 2 people. You have a senator and you have a governor in South Carolina. And they thought they were going to do well there. And they're not doing so well. It's a great state for us. And I think we have a lot of people here right now, and I just met a couple backstage from South Carolina. It's great. But we're leading by a lot there. We're leading by a lot everywhere, and a lot of it's because they do like me, but a lot of it's also because there has never been a more incompetent administration in the history of our country than these clowns and thugs and very bad people that are running our country now and destroying our country. There's never been anything like this. But most importantly, far and away, I'm beating Biden by a lot. If I wasn't running, or if I was in 3rd, 4th, or 5th place, or something in that category, none of this interference would have ever happened. None of this horrible stuff with U.S. attorneys and the FBI and DOJ. Oh, we're in a banana republic right now. Think of it. We did great. We won in 2016. People said we wouldn't win. We won. We won big. We did much better in 2020. You know, we got millions and millions more votes, many millions and more votes. We did something very few presidents do. Usually they get less votes the second time. People get bored. They get tired of them, like we're tired of this guy. And but we're tired of him for different reasons, not out of boredom. It's just out of, actually, he's very exciting because you don't know when he's going to just pop off and explode. You're watching everybody standing on eggs. You say, did he just say that? Did you see him yesterday? It's just not even believable what's going on. I don't know. It's hard to believe he's going to be running. Hard to believe he's going to get to the gate. I don't think he will. But if he does, he does. If he does, he does. Whatever. But whether it's him or somebody else, we have no choice. We have to win. Because their views are just absolutely horrible. And we're going to be better than any other election we've ever had. We're going to get the highest. You know, in 2020, I don't know if you know that, the press doesn't like talking about, we got the most votes in the history of politics for a sitting president. No sitting president, almost 75 million votes. And that's what they say. That's not including the other votes that they forgot about. But we got the most votes in the history of politics. I was told if we got 63 million and we won. And I was told that if we got 63 million, we couldn't lose by the best pollsters. And we got about 12 million more votes than that. And they say we lost. You know, it's horrible. So they rigged the presidential election in 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024. We're going to bring our country back. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists and communists and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of honor. I really do. Because in a true sense, I'm being indicted for you. Thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And did you see today that deranged Jack Smith, he's the prosecutor, he's a deranged person, wants to take away my rights under the First Amendment, wants to take away my right of speaking freely and openly. Never forget, our enemies want to stop us because we are the only ones that can stop them. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. I'm standing here. Standing here, I am that, in another sense, I'm that wall. We built a very successful wall. You know, they like to say, we only built 50 miles. We built almost 500 miles of wall. These people are sick. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you, never. And in the end, they're not after me, they're after you. I just happen to be standing in their way. Unfortunately for me, but you're lucky. But here's just some of what we will do when we become, and I say we become, because we're going to become the 47th president of the United States. As soon as we get back in the White House, I will totally obliterate the deep state. And we started, and we're doing a great job. Then we got hit with the COVID. We fired Comey. We fired a lot of people. But we got hit with COVID, and we had to do a lot of other things. We did a great job on that, and we never were recognized. They recognized us for a lot of things. ISIS, we got rid of ISIS. Got you the largest tax cuts in history. Got you the largest regulation cuts in history. Had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We were energy independent. Think of it, energy independent. We're going to be energy dominant within months. And then they came along, and now look what's happened to your energy. It's not good. Now they want to go to all electric cars. They don't go far. They cost a lot of money. They got some basic problems. They're very expensive, and they don't go far. I think they want to keep you somewhere around your home. They don't want to build highways or something. They got some crazy plan. They always have something. You know, they want to build, I don't know if you know, all electric army tanks. Now, we have these army tanks. No, I just saw this yesterday. They want to build all electric army tanks. The army tanks, the greatest tanks, the Sherman tank, the greatest tanks in the world we built. So now when we go into obliterate a country with our army tanks, at least we won't pollute it with the pollutants pouring out of the back of the tank. And now they also want to go with a certain type of fuel to, it'll cut down about 12% on the efficiency of our fighter jets. They want to make our fighter jets very environmentally friendly. So we go into a war, we're over somebody's territory, we're bombing the crap out of them, but at least we're not polluting their air. Are we crazy or what? And the planes, think of this, the planes are 12% less efficient. So you got a pilot up there, and he's got some guy on his tail. And he's saying, what the hell happened to my plane? I used to be able to get out of these situations. This plane is not so good anymore. And they're willing, because they don't want to pollute the air over a country that we're in war with. These are brilliant people doing this. They have to want to destroy our country to do this. And how about the truckers? Did you read about the truckers? They want to go all electric trucks. Now, there are a couple of basic problems, but I met with truckers, and they said every year for 50 years, the trucks got better and better and better. We expected it. We had to pay millions of dollars for trucks, but they got better, better, better. If they do this, we're going to go back 50 or 60 years. For one thing, and I had no idea, some of the big ones with the big tanks, they can go up to 2,000 miles with diesel. Think of that, in other words, you can drive all day, all night, all day, all night, forever. But 2,000 miles. And electric will go, if you're lucky, 300 miles. So they're going to go 300 miles stop for about 5 hours and charge it up. And these guys, I don't know, does anybody not sit down? You don't even have to sit down. So they're going to destroy our trucking industry, and right now it's a regulation, and they're actually serious about it. I actually thought all this stuff with the army tanks and the jets and all the things, I actually thought it was, you know, some kind of a comedy skit. But it's not. They really mean it, and they're going to destroy our destroy our trucking industry. You think you don't get your goods right now, you're going to see some mess. But I will fire every corrupt official who has weaponized our government against Christians, conservatives, patriots, and people of faith. We're going to fire them. You're fired. You remember The Apprentice? I'm sure nobody remembers The Apprentice. You're fired. Get out of here. That show ran for 12 years. 12 years. It was a tremendous success. And I said, well, one thing I know when I do this, actually it was 14 different shows. It was so good they put it on one season, they put it on twice. And they said they wanted to renew my contract for a long time. Anything I wanted, they were willing to give because it was doing great all the time. But I had done it for 12 years. That's a long time, considering I was never in show business before. Right? And it did phenomenal for them. And I said, one thing for certain, NBC is going to treat me so good. They're going to treat me so good. They are so bad. MSNBC and MSDNC, I call it. But they are so bad. But that's all right. But they want to give me a long term. I think that's why they're bad. I wouldn't extend. They gave it to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that didn't work out too well. That lasted about 2 minutes. Somebody said, do you want Arnold Schwarzenegger to succeed like never before and even top your ratings, which is almost impossible to do? But would you rather have that? And we own the show. Would you rather have that, or would you rather have him fail? Because I know what the fake news would do. If he was successful with it, they'd say, see, Trump didn't do so good. Because look, we got a movie star and he took over. Well, I said, probably I'd rather see him fail, to be honest with you. And he did. He failed. Didn't work out. But The Apprentice was great. But he said, you fired. And I fired a lot of people, but we're going to have to fire a lot more because that deep state runs deeper than we thought. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, shortly after I win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, and it would have never happened. It would have never, ever happened if I was there. I used to talk to Putin about it. I've said it very openly. I talked to him about it. It was the apple of his eye. I said, don't do it, Vladimir. Don't do it, Vladimir. Oh, you'll be making such a mistake. And I told him a couple of things. He said, you wouldn't do that. I said, yes, I will. No, you wouldn't. And he probably didn't believe me, but he believed me 10%. That's all you needed. But I said, don't do it. As soon as I left, they started to form, and we saw the handwriting. And then we had the disaster of Afghanistan, which I think was the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, and the press doesn't even want to talk about it anymore. The most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, and Putin saw that, and China saw that, and they saw that we had a lot of very incompetent people, and it was a rough time. But we'll get that done. We'll get it done very quickly. As the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. You know that, right? Blessed are the peacemakers. I made peace. Remember, Hillary said, he will take us into war. No, I took us out of all these wars. I got us out of Syria, got us out of Iraq. I protected Israel. They would have been in a big problem. But I'll be your peacemaker, and I am the only candidate who can make this promise to you. I will prevent World War III. We are very close to World War III. Let me tell you, we are very close to World War III. And World War III will be like no other because of the power of the weaponry. The weaponry we have today is just incredible, and others have, by the way. But I will prevent World War III, and I'll heal our relationship with the state of Israel to reverse the damage that crooked Joe Biden has done. Unlike Biden, I'll not be giving the $6 billion as ransom to countries for 5 people. 5 people. I will stop the disaster known as Bidenomics. He thinks it's good. You know, Bidenomics started up being a really bad thing, and they use it as a negative expression, but he liked the sound of it, so now he's trying to promote it as being a wonderful thing. But it really means inflation, taxation, submission, and failure. Other than that, it's quite good. Those are 4 pretty cool things, aren't they? But not if you have to live with it like the people of our country have to do. I will regain energy independence as we had 3 years ago and achieve energy dominance. You know, we have more liquid gold I call it liquid gold. That's what it is. We have more liquid gold than Saudi Arabia or Russia, than anybody. And we were going to be drilling, and we were drilling, and we were filling up the strategic reserves, which now he's emptied to the lowest level ever ever. You know that, right? The lowest level ever, in order to keep gasoline prices down on people so they'd vote for a Democrat, but artificial, very artificial. Now it's up to $5, I see. Gasoline is up to $5, $6, $7 in some places. It's going up very rapidly. But America was going to have, we're going to make so much money. We're going to sell to Europe, oil and gas, sell it to Europe, and we were going to start paying off our $35 trillion in debt. And we were going to lower taxes still further. We're going to do great things, but when they came in, they ended everything. And that's what caused inflation. Energy caused inflation. Now everything's causing inflation. It's a mess. And the numbers came out yesterday that inflation is absolutely not in control. And inflation's a nation killer, by the way. You go back 200 years and 100 years, you look at any nation that's had rampant inflation, they die. Those nations die. America will have the #1 lowest cost of energy and electricity anywhere in the world. We'll do that. You know, New England pays the highest in the country, and I explained to them, I said, you know, they can't get a pipe going through upstate New York, where everyone wants it to go through because they want the jobs, because it's really in bad shape. And if that happened, you'd cut it in half immediately. Instead, ships come, many from Russia. Can you believe it? They were all coming from Russia, and they load it up and they give it to New England, but it's very expensive. They have the highest prices for energy. They should never vote for a Democrat, I'll tell you that. They do, they tend to, but they should never even think about it. Under my, and you have to see this because we have something incredible, really incredible planned, and some incredible things, but upon my inauguration, I'll terminate every open borders policy of the Biden administration and quickly achieve the most secure border in U.S. history, as we had 3 years ago. We had the most successful border 3 years ago. We built nearly 500 miles of border wall. That's all certified stuff, by the way. You know, they like to say, well, he didn't build the wall. It wasn't easy when you had Paul Rhino. Do you know who Paul Rhino is? Paul Ryan? Paul Rhino, and you had Mitch McConnell. And they fought so hard, and I got it anyway, and I got it done. Then we were going to add 200 more miles, and that was all set to go. And then we had the election situation take place, that horrible situation, horrible day in our, and it's going to go down as that. It'll be a horrible day in our country's history, and because of that, I said, these guys don't want to finish. It would have taken 3 weeks to put up another 200 miles of wall. It was all there. It was all ready to be assembled. But we got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. You know, they always say, Mexico, Mexico. Well, Mexico paid fortunes for that. We had 28,000 soldiers free of charge. You know, when they say Mexico didn't pay, Mexico paid much more for that because I needed that. We didn't have to worry about the war. We got that from the military because I considered it an invasion, so I took it out of the military, which is just a small portion of their budget. But I took it out because that was an invasion. But Mexico, we had 28,000 soldiers free of charge, and it wasn't easy to get either. I went to them, and I said, you got to give us 28,000 soldiers to protect us from people pouring through your country. And they smiled at me, and they said, why would we do that? Which is probably what everybody would say. I said, no, you're going to do it. You're going to do it, 100%. And the person, a woman, very nice woman, she was actually good, but she never won anything in 25 years from Mexico. But she worked on Mexico for 25 years. She said, sir, we've been asking for things like that for 25 years. They're never going to give it to you. I said, absolutely, 100%. Not 90%, not 95%, 100%. They're going to give it to us. Sure, they won't. And we asked for other things like remain in Mexico and all sorts of things, Title 42. So I said, give me a list of your top 10 things, and they wrote it down. The Border Patrol wrote down things. Border Patrol's great. ICE wrote down things. They're great. These are great patriots. These are tough guys. They all wrote down 10 things. But the big thing was the 28,000 soldiers, I guess you'd say. And the top person from Mexico came in, just right under the president, who's a friend of mine. I mean, he's a great guy. He came in, and I said, you're going to have to give us 28,000 soldiers. No, we will not do that. I said, yes, you will. And he said, no, we will not do that. I said, here's the story. It was a Friday evening. I said, on Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be paying a tariff or tax of 25% of every car. You know, they sold 32% of our car industry, just so you know. They send us millions of cars. of every car and every product from Mexico into the United States, you're going to be paying a tariff. And here are the papers right here. I'm going to sign them now, but it goes into effect 7 o'clock on Monday morning. And he said, may I make a phone call? And I said, you may. Came back in 5 minutes. Sir, it would be our honor to put 28,000 soldiers on the border to protect you from some very bad people that are coming in. And you know, Biden gave all that stuff up. He gave up Title 42. That, you know what Title 42 was so important? To protect our country. And to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families and their home countries immediately. And you know, Jim Caviezel, who's a big actor, he put it very well in the movie Sound of Freedom. God's children are not for sale. He said that. God's children are not for sale. Good movie. That was a good movie, by the way. And Jim is a wonderful guy. On day one, I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Our children are just being absolutely, I mean, they're being harassed, and they're not old enough to know what's right. And, you know, as the children, when they do these horrible things to them, and they turn 30 at 35, they look back and they say, who did this to me? Many of them, a big percentage, I think 68%, I saw some numbers, 68%. Who did this to me? Who did it? Without parental consent? Can you believe it? I will insist on the right of every parent to send their child to the public, private, charter, or religious school of their choice. Choice, choice, choice. We want to have choice in schools, and we want to have choice in cars. If we don't want to buy an electric car, and you should be able, some people might want an electric car. You know, they want to drive to the drugstore every once in a while, right? But if you don't want an electric car, you should be able to use the thing, that beautiful liquid gold that's under our feet. Is called gasoline. Or hybrids. Hybrids are very good, actually. You know, at least you're not going to be stuck. You know, with an electric car, there are lots of feelings engendered by electric cars. The first is one of the best feelings you ever have in life, when you have it fully charged and you're ready to go, and you start on your trip, and for 10 minutes you feel like you're elated. Then after that, for the next hour and a half, you feel horrible because you're looking for a charger. You're saying, where the hell am I going to get this car charged? But I always say to people about electric cars that if I were in that business, I would immediately open up, because these guys are making a fortune, a tow truck company. Because you see these cars, they're being towed all over the place. I would make so much money, but I can't do that. I think is that a conflict with being president? I think so, right? What do you think? Is that a little bit of a conflict? I will close the Federal Department of Education, and we will move everything back to the states where they can individualize education and do it with love for our children. You know, look, every list I look at, we're like in the bottom 2%, 5%. We're at the bottom. There's a list of 40 that came out. We're number 39. We spend more money per pupil than any country in the world by triple. Norway is second, and Denmark is third, and China, believe it or not, is right up there, as big as it is. And they have countries that spend a tiny fraction of what we spend, so obviously it's not working. And all those buildings in Washington, I see a Department of It, the biggest buildings you've ever seen, they're all over the place. We got to keep one or two people just to make sure they're teaching English, right? You know, all of a sudden we'll say one place happened to go to a different language. We can't let that happen, but we're going to end the Department of Education, let the states run education, and these states are going to do a great job, many of them. I'll also fight to keep, and this is so important, that people will be able to direct elections and get and pick the school principals by the parents, and these will be the principals of their choice, because right now you have principals in there that hate parents. I mean, I watch this happening. You have principals that absolutely are violent. They hate the parents. They don't want to let the parents even talk to them about the education of their child. If any principal is not getting the job done, the parents should be able to vote to fire them and select someone that they like. But that'll ultimately be up to the states. We will have great schools that lead to great jobs and ultimately great lives, because we have horrible schools right now. Our programs are terrible. As much money as we spend, and I'll not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or a mask mandate. I let it be up to the governors, but we're not going to do that. And, you know, I allowed the governors. Some did a great job and some didn't do a good job. You look at Governor Noem of South Dakota, where I just left. She's done a fantastic job. And you look at Henry McMaster, Governor McMaster of South Carolina, did a fantastic job, kept the states open. And some did, some didn't. But the ones that really did horrible jobs were Democrat governors. I think just about every one of them. And we're not going to let it happen. In addition, I'll take historic action to defeat the toxic poison of gender ideology and reassert, in the beginning, God created two genders, male and female. Is that all right to say? See, the press back there is going to say, we have breaking news. He said there is two genders, male and female, headlines. It's a terrible, terrible thing to say. You know, you have to be very careful. You do these shows and you do everything. You say something that's perfect, you end up in like headlines. Yeah, two genders, male and female. On day one, I will sign an executive order instructing every federal agency to cease the promotion of sex or gender transition at any age. They can't do it. They can't do it. The mistakes that are made are so horrific. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth, can you believe we say this, right? Can you believe it? No longer meets federal health and safety standards, they will be terminated from receiving federal funds effective immediately. We'll do it immediately. You'd be amazed at how quickly that'll stop. And I will challenge California's depraved new laws that strip parents of parental rights and that encourage minors to be transported across state lines for sexual mutilation. Can you believe this? We talked about it before. Can you believe we have to say this? And we will prosecute those involved in this sick California scheme for violating federal laws against kidnapping, sex trafficking. It's really sex trafficking, child abuse, and a deprivation of civil rights. What they're doing is not even possible to believe. And I will restore the Trump ban on transgender in the military. You know, I had transgender bans, and I went to generals, and all the generals agreed. They undid that. I will once again appoint rock-solid conservative judges in the mold of Justices Antonin Scalia, Samuel Alito, who's done a fantastic job, and the great Clarence Thomas, he's been fantastic. I will fully uphold the Second Amendment. Which is a big deal. 4 years it was upheld, but they're doing all sorts. They're really fighting it very hard, and a weak person in office will lose it. I will bring back free speech in America, and I will secure the integrity of our elections. We have to do it. These things, and this is what we must do to restore our country to greatness again. The USA is a mess. Our economy is crashing. Inflation is totally out of control. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea formed together in a menacing and destructive coalition, very, very dangerous. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat in 200 years if that happens. If that happens, it will be our single greatest defeat. But it won't happen with me, not even a chance. Just like Russia would never have invaded Ukraine and China would not even be thinking about raiding Taiwan. I spoke to President Xi. He was never going to do it. He's only doing it, or may do it now, because he has no respect for this administration, and he has no respect for Biden. And we would have left Afghanistan with dignity and strength. We were leaving Afghanistan. I got it down to 2,500 soldiers, which is the lowest number in many, many years. But we were going to keep Bagram because that air base is 1 hour away from where China, forget Afghanistan, where China makes their nuclear weapons. 1 hour, one of the biggest air bases in the world, and we fled, almost like in retreat, almost like a surrender. And we left Bagram, and you know who's occupying Bagram right now? China. China's occupying it. We built it, cost a fortune to build. Biggest, most powerful runways they can hold. I think they're 8 feet thick of concrete, 20,000 feet long, which is double a long runway. And we fled. We fled. Instead, I think really this is our greatest embarrassment in history, and a lot of bad things happened because of it. If you took the 5 worst presidents in the history of the United States and added them up, they would not have done the destruction to our country that crooked Joe Biden and the Biden administration have done in just a few short years, 3 years. We are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. And by the way, those are 2 phrases that Ron DeSanctimonious uses all the time. Do you notice? He says, we are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. Now, they're pretty unique statements, but he uses them all the time. And you know what? He can use them because he also throws hats. Do you notice the hats? He's throwing hats. And he does it the same way. He gets low and he flicks his wrist like that. And we don't like these copycats, do we? It's crazy. You know, I don't do the hat thing anymore because I don't want to. I watch them and say, ugh. But it is true. We are a failing nation, and we are a nation in decline. And it's really a very sad thing to have to say, but it's obvious. And now these radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections by using law enforcement at a level that they've never done before. Our nation is being challenged like never before. And yet I stand here tonight confident that America can and will overcome it all by the strength of our faith, the power of prayer, and the grace of Almighty God. And many political people will not say those words. They will not say those words. In their group, if they say those words, they'll be taken to the shed. We're gonna proudly say those words. And frankly, that's one of the problems our nation has, is it's gone the opposite in the opposite direction. There's nothing we cannot do as long as we hold fast to the timeless words of our national motto, in God we trust. So with your help and your prayers and your vote, we will stand up for the women of America. We will put America first, and we will, without question, make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good time. Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Mr. President, the women of Concerned Women for America would love to just quickly say a prayer over with you. Would that be okay? If you'd like to join me, lift your palms up to the Lord and join me in prayer for this president. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much that we live in a nation where we get to choose our leaders. Thank you, God, for giving us a president that was willing to do the hard thing, to make America strong, to make our military great again, to support innocent life. God, I pray that you will continue to bless America. And God, I pray for President Trump. I pray that you will keep him safe. I pray that you will surround his family with angel armies and keep them safe from those who wish to harm them, even those that wish to hurt his children. God, I pray for them at this moment. God, 1 Peter tells us to humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God, and he will lift us up in due season, to cast our cares upon him because he cares for us. God, I pray that President Trump will feel cared for. I pray that he will be able to cast his cares on God. And I pray, Lord, that you will fill him with peace, fill him with joy, Lord, and continue to help him to feel resolute in protecting America. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.